Hello, my name's Aaron Day from MakeCrazyDays.org. Today, I'm going to make some recurve bow limbs. If you'd like to see how, keep watching. I start at the joiner cleaning up one edge of this 8/4 maple. The freshly jointed edges run against the fence on the bandsaw. This yields a slat about 1/8 of an inch to 1/16 of an inch, which will be used in the lamination to create the limbs. I then return the stock to the joiner and repeat this process until I have enough slats. With a stack of slats, I hand plane off the rough edge from the bandsaw. Next, a slight taper along the length of the slat is added. The thin end will be the tip of the limb. One of the joys of getting your wife into woodworking is the additional noise in the background of your videos. Prepare for the lamination by putting on some gloves first. I lay out some wax paper since the laminating step is quite messy. Only one end needs to be secured with tape since I'll spatula the epoxy only in one direction. Equal parts A and B of the epoxy are scooped into a bowl. A different scooping stick is used with each of the parts to avoid cross-contamination in the cans. The epoxy is mixed completely for about 30 seconds. The slats are oriented so two pieces are reversed from each other to counterbalance any potential of grain directionality. Then I completely cover the slats for each of the sides which will be mated together. Don't worry if there is some epoxy on the back sides of the limbs, as it won't hurt anything. The epoxied faces are then placed together. A little tape is wrapped around the base of the limb to keep them square. I will cover the making of the form in another video and link to it when it's done. The sandwich slats are placed in the form. Quick clamps are used to pull the form together, but will be removed in favor of the F-style clamps as things get tightened up. F-style clamps provide quite a bit more pressure but are slower to apply. Several clamps are used along the whole length of the form to ensure the slats don't have any gaps. A couple days later, though 24 hours should be sufficient, the clamps are removed. Even with all the surfaces covered in packing tape, it's still quite a workout to bust the limb out of the form. Perhaps a little inspection will yield some information. A flat bar? Ye old trusty hammer finally breaks the seal. Not that the epoxy is still tacky, but it still needs to be worked off of the packing tape. The packing tape will probably need to be replaced for the next limb. The squeeze out from the epoxy is removed at the disc sander. And the little bit of epoxy on the surfaces of the limb is sanded off with a palm sander. The limbs are trimmed to rough length at the bandsaw. A pair of limbs should match in shape. I used automotive fiberglass fabric and resin since it was inexpensive and easy to find. Slightly oversized strips of fabric were cut out for the limbs, and the fabric was laid out on the inside of each limb. The resin was mixed up per the instructions on the can of resin. The resin seemed to melt a little bit of the plastic of the red bowl as I noticed a very slight red tinge. A liberal amount of resin was spatulated over the fabric, soaking it completely through to the wood. Fiberglass cloth becomes translucent as it soaks up the resin. After the resin cures for a day or two, the limbs are flipped over and the same treatment is done to the outside of the limb. Once both sides of the limbs have fully cured, the excess resin and cloth is removed at the bandsaw. It would probably be wise to use some work gloves besides the normal safety gear. The cutoffs can be sharp. At least take extra care. The fiberglass is then sanded. The use of automotive fiberglass, which is fairly thick, showed some of the weave pattern through when sanding, which was a bit disappointing, but it's still functional. The first limb was cut to shape on the bandsaw. I used it as a template for the second limb, so they would match. The second limb was then cut just shy of the lines. Then the disc sander was used to sand right up to the line. At the drill press I bored a hole for the bolt which will hold the limb on the riser. Even though it's fiberglass, use a backer to prevent tear out. I measured about 1 7/8 inches from the tip and marked it on both sides of the limb. Then, using a round file, I cleared out a spot for the bowstring to hook onto the limb. The last part is attaching the limbs to the riser. This was just done with a bolt and washer. Here is a more faithful representation of my shooting ability. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and share it. And as always, God bless. Sure enough, back at the test jig, the bottle is horizontal. The bottle is